What's up, my Yu-Gi Bros? I am your host, the one, the only, the RJB0. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! And what I cannot believe I ever got away with calling business casual. I mean, don't get me wrong, I look damn good. However, I would not get away with wearing this to my job. I'm wearing it today because I am going out canvassing after locals. That essentially means that I'm going door to door selling democracy. On that note, it is vitally important that all of you who live in America vote this November. Yeah, I'm doing my political thing for a second. The reason is because we live in the United States of America, which happens to be one of the privileged countries in the world that is allowed to choose its own leaders, and these people make very big decisions that I guarantee affect your life. These people make the laws. These people are the ones who decide how we tax people, how much we tax people, who we tax, how we use that money, how we use our military. All of these things are decided by the people that we elect, that we vote for. And if people don't vote, then those decisions are made for them. And usually, as I'm certain you know, those decisions are made very poorly. The more people vote with their self-interest in mind, the better those decisions are made, because the more say each and every person has in the role of their government. So that is my spiel, but that's not what y'all came here for. Y'all came here for Juunishishi. Juunishi, as I am certain that I do not need to tell you at this point, is an absolutely spectacular archetype. Its main power comes from the fact that it can instantly summon Xyz monsters off of one monster, and each and every one of those monsters and Xyz monsters has an effect that are usually pretty damn good. Now, around this time in the creation and release of any archetype in any deck, the main conversation that goes around the Yu-Gi-Oh! Playing sphere, and I unfortunately think that it does not get talked about as a conversation enough in the Yu-Gi-Tubing sphere, is what cards actually go well with that deck and which cards do not. There's a lot of wild speculation and a lot of playing around, and a lot of the time the things that get covered are not necessarily the best cards to meld with the deck. We get a lot of blends with suboptimal engines. We get a lot of cards that people think are really good but turn out to be super sacky. And the reason why this is important to talk about early on is because this is a matter of investment. If you are trying to come up with the cards that you are going to want to play in an archetype, in a deck, then you are going to have a couple of options. Either you are going to get them and have to speculate early and be able to get them cheaply and easily, or you try to get them once people have generally figured out what is good and what is not, and are already planning for the competitive game, at which point they become expensive and difficult to get. Misinformation on the subject often leads people to make bad investments and not be prepared for the future. So today, I want to run through a couple of the cards I can think of off the top of my head, between cards that are things that people have already been playing around with on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, things that other Yu-Gi tubers have already talked about, and cards that I think of myself. Since Juunishishi is largely an archetype that can operate on its own, the things that we're going to be talking about largely fall under three categories. Now, one of the main things that comes up when an archetype that is very powerful and very splashable hits the game is whether or not you can mash it up with other decks. I think that that is fairly likely to be the case with Juunishishi, but I also think that in the competitive game we are more likely to see Juunishishi being played as purely or as combo focused as possible. So it's unlikely to be played in any sort of general mashup. We're not going to be seeing Juunishishi Fire Kings. We're not going to be seeing Juunishishi Yang Zing. We're not going to be saying that kind of thing. What we're going to be seeing is either pure Juunishishi with some text gathered in, or we're going to be seeing a Juunishishi engine largely involving Mulmarat, I expect, and the continuous spell card and a couple of fire formations. So this leaves us generally with three things that we need to talk about. The very first is cards that are going to be splashed into a pure Juunishishi deck. The second are things I like to call Tier 2 techs. They're things that are not necessarily going to be played in every Juunishishi deck, and we're not necessarily going to be seeing it a lot in the tops at YCSs, but we are likely to be seeing them at regionals when players start to get bored with the original build because it's everywhere. And the third is looking distantly into the future, in which Juunishishi either meets a ban list or meets a format that has a hard counter for it. I'm going to look at the first category first. The first tech I want to talk about is Coach Captain Bearman. For those of you who do not know, Coach Captain Bearman is a level 8 Beast Warrior that says that you can normal summon it without tribute. I don't remember what the conditions are, but I remember that they are very easy to get with a Juunishishi deck, and once it's on the field, once per turn, you can make all of your level 4 Beast Warrior type monsters into level 8s. This is good because rank 8 Xyz are bomb. Now, there are a couple of potential issues with this card. The number one potential issue is the fact that it itself can only be used for Fire Xyz monsters, the only one of which that I can think of is the Coach Captain, or the Coach whatever it is, the rank 8 Coach Xyz monster that allows you to 3 times per turn, or as many times per turn as you like, I believe, detach a material to draw 1 card. Now that card in and of itself is really, really powerful. The thing is, you don't actually need to do the Xyz summoning with Bearman himself, because you are going to be summoning a ton of level 4 Beast Warrior type monsters. That means you are going to have a lot of fodder for rank 8 Xyz monsters, and rank 8 Xyz monsters are really good, as said above. The nice thing about Bearman is that he's very searchable in the deck, so you only really need to run one of him in order to get the big combos off. He also makes the Juunishishi strategy good for both turn 1 and turn 2. I would definitely say grab yourself a copy of this card because you're at the very least at the beginning of the Juunishishi format going to be seeing him teched in at 1 quite a bit. Of the mashup decks, the only good combination that I have seen so far is the Juunishishi Speedroid deck, and that deck is actually really, really phenomenal. That is the combination of Teketenborg and Terror Top with your MX Saber Invoker, which starts off some pretty amazing strategies without even a normal summon. All you really need is to have the Terror Top in your hand, and you have some bomb strategies. I can link you to a couple of videos that will show you some of these strategies. I think that this is really good. The only major issue I see with the Speedroid engine and picking it up now is, first of all, it's already a competitive engine. It is at the biggest price that it is likely to have in the near future, because it's already in one of the best decks of the format, that being PK Fire. The other thing about that fact is that PK Fire has yet to be successfully hit on the ban list. Konami has certainly slowed it down, but they haven't gotten it out of the game. One of the easiest ways to hit PK Fire is to hit the Speedroid engine. They hit Terror Top or Teketenborg, your entire investment is down the drain. I would personally focus on other things. The final Tier 1 enhancement that's liable to happen in the Juunishishi deck is a card that I thought of recently and have been thinking of ever since the beginning of the Zale era, or Zexal era. It's a card that came out of Order of Chaos called Galaxy Wave. It's a continuous spell card that every time you Xyz summon a monster, inflicts 500 points of damage to your opponent. Now, in your average Juunishishi deck, a turn generally sees you Xyz summoning 4 times in 1 turn. That is 2,000 points of damage in your standard Juunishishi turn. That means that along with the crazy amount of attack power that the deck has the potential for, you can also deal 2,000 points of damage. This opens the gateway for a lot of OTK potential, not to mention the fact that that's only 1 turn. If this card survives another turn, long enough for you to enter into another Juunishishi combo, you could potentially beat your opponent without ever throwing 1 attack. Do I think it's going to be in every single Juunishishi deck? No. Do I think that there is going to be a variant that focuses on that? Oh, you bet your booty there will be. Moving on to the kind of Tier 2 enhancements, the ones that we're likely to see in your regionals, tops, and once the deck gets potentially hit, because this is a particular deck that is liable to be adaptable to the ban list if it combines with other decks. It's similar in that way to PK Fire, to the original Dragon Ruler decks, things like that. The first one that I have seen people talking about is Fire Fist. This is the kind of obvious choice because the best thing to combine with Beast Warrior type monsters is the Fire Formations, and the best thing to combine with the Fire Formations is the Fire Fist monsters. The issue I have with Fire Fist is largely the things that they can do, Juunishishi can generally do better. Bear can destroy cards, Dancia can destroy cards during your opponent's turn. You know, you can Xyz summon using Wolf Bark, you can Xyz summon with any Juunishishi monster that you want. So Fire Fists are not necessarily optimal for the deck. That said, once the deck gets hit, which will happen at some point, I am absolutely certain, it is likely to survive due in part to splashing with other engines, and Fire Fist is likely to be one of those engines. Splashing in copies of Bear and Wolf Bark gives you extra destruction potential, extra search potential, and extra Xyz potential. Like I said, this likely will not happen for a very long time because it requires first the deck being hit on the ban list after, of course, the deck comes out, which will be a long time in the future, but it's definitely a thing to think about. The second sort of Tier 2 enhancement is Fire Kings. Now, a lot of people have been speculating that Fire Kings would be a good mashup with the deck anyway. I think that Garunix being the best Fire King card of them all, it is unlikely that as an entire engine, Fire Kings are liable to see play in Juunishishi, just because Garunix defeats the entire point of the Juunishishi deck, which is to gain really, really strong field presence. If you're destroying your entire field presence once per turn, that kind of defeats the point. However, Barong and Onslaught are potentially a really good combination. This piece of theorio that I've been working on is the fact that the field spell card is unlikely to be used in initial forms of the deck. Why? Because the deck is really fast, and the field spell is only really useful for the purpose of increasing the staying power of your monsters, that is, by destroying cards instead of your Juunishishis. So, the deck is unlikely to be using the field spell card a lot when it first comes out, just because it really doesn't need it. However, if it meets up with a slow format, or it gets slowed down by the ban list or something, then it is likely to start using the field spell. And then a couple of cool things come into play, one of them being Barong. If you use Barong, you can use it with the continuous spell card and also the field spell card. And this has a couple of advantages. If you destroy the Barong for the field spell or continuous spell card, you can get Onslaught during the end phase. This gives you a lot of combo pieces to work with. You know, you can keep your Barong in your hand if you don't want to use your normal summon on it, to use it as protection with the field spell card. And then once you get Onslaught, that's when the really fun plays come into play. Onslaught gives you a couple of advantages. One is it is not a normal summon, but it gives you a Beast Warrior type monster to work with. So if you want your Xyz to get multiple effects off of their summon, instead of only having one material to work with, then you can summon Barong, use it as Xyz material with one of your Juunishishis to create the monkey, which I believe is the one that only requires 2. You can get 2 effects, both the one from the Juunishishi monster and the one from the monkey, and that will allow you to build a board of more Xyz monsters, not necessarily just having to stack them over and over and over again. The other cool thing about Onslaught is you can use it to get out a target for your continuous spell card, which then allows you to search out another Onslaught during the end phase because of Barong. I think that that's potentially really, really handy, but I don't think it's liable to see play right off the bat. Finally, this one's a little personal just because I really love the card and I think it's one of the biggest sleeper cards in the game ever since it came back to 3. That card is Reborn Tengu. Reborn Tengu has the advantage over other floaters of the fact that A, it happens instantly, and B, it happens no matter what happens to him short of Xyz summoning with Reborn Tengu. This makes Reborn Tengu a really, really valuable combo piece because not only can you use him in combination with the continuous spell card to summon another Juunishishi, but then you also have him right away in order to use for an Xyz summon, or in order to use for the field spell, or any other thing that you would like to do with a Beast Warrior type monster. I think that Tengu has a lot of potential, in part because he can also be searched with off of Tenki. There have been a lot of other techs and mashups running around for the deck, but those are largely the ones that I think are valuable to think about right now. So I would say keep these things in mind when you are looking into the future for building the deck or preparing for the format when you want to be able to trade and sell these cards. If there are other cards that you can think of off the top of your head that you think that we should be talking about with respect to the Juunishishi deck, let me know in the comment section below and y'all can discuss there. Meanwhile, thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section below. And of course, subscribe for more decks, discussion, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Thank you all for watching. I am your host, the one, the only, the RJB0, and I got a jet. See you guys. Also, vote.